Snow pressed itself against the windows of the Khrushchevka like a crowd trying to get in. The apartment was too quiet. After the shouting stopped, quiet in the way that made her ears ring. Anya sat on the kitchen floor with her back against the cabinet, knees drawn up, breath coming in short, broken pulls that stabbed her side every time she inhaled. Each breath felt wrong, as if the air itself had turned sharp. Her phone lay a meter away, face down, buzzing insistently against the cracked linoleum. She stared at it, afraid to move, afraid that even the smallest shift would send another bolt of pain through her ribs. The smell of cold tea and iron hung in the air. Somewhere in the building, a neighbor's television droned on. Laughter from a sitcom, canned and distant like it belonged to another country. When she finally reached for the phone, her fingers were numb, clumsy. The screen was smeared with something dark. She wiped it on her sleeve without looking too closely. Messages from him stacked the display. Missed calls. Threats typed in careless bursts. Afinal ты пожалеешь. You'll regret it. Anya didn't answer. Instead, she opened a new message and typed the words that had been trapped in her chest since the first blow landed. Он сломал мне ребра. She didn't add a name, didn't explain. The words felt heavy enough on their own. Her vision blurred as she hit send, and only afterward did she notice the number at the top of the screen. One digit was wrong, just one. Her heart lurched harder than the pain in her side. Chort, she whispered, damn it. She tried to pull the message back, but it was already gone, floating somewhere beyond her reach. The phone buzzed again almost immediately. For a second she thought it was him, that he had come back, that the lock would turn and this quiet would shatter. Instead, an unfamiliar notification appeared. Unknown. Кто это сделал? Who did this? Her mouth went dry. She stared at the message, snow light flickering across the screen. Outside, a car engine started, then died. The building groaned as pipes adjusted to the cold. Another buzz. Unknown. Где вы? Where are you? Anya swallowed, winced, and typed the address with shaking thumbs. She didn't know why she answered. Shock, maybe, or exhaustion, or the small, reckless hope that sometimes appeared when there was nothing left to lose. She pressed send. The reply came after a pause, long enough for fear to bloom, long enough for her to regret everything. Then the screen lit up again. Unknown, я выезжаю. The message arrived without sound, slipping past the layers of security like it belonged there. One vibration, one line of text. Он сломал мне ребра. Sergei Volkov read it once, then again, his thumb still. The phone glowing pale against the dark wood of his desk. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Moscow stretched and breathed, traffic threading the embankment, the river locked under black ice, the city alive in its sleepless way. From 30 floors up, everything looked orderly, predictable, controlled. He disliked disorder. Around him, the meeting continued in low voices. Men in tailored suits argued numbers, routes, favors owed. Words like ports, permits, customs drifted through the room. Sergei raised one finger and the conversation died instantly. Silence snapped into place, sharp and obedient. He leaned back in his chair, eyes still on the screen. He had no idea who the woman was. He also knew that didn't matter. Cruelty without reason offended him. Sloppy violence offended him more. Another message appeared. Где вы? Sergei exhaled slowly through his nose. Somewhere in the city, someone was bleeding on a kitchen floor, weighing whether to trust a stranger. He glanced at the time. Past midnight. These things always happened at night. The reply came moments later. An address in a district most men like him pretended not to know anymore. Old buildings, thin walls, cheap locks. Sergei stood. Chairs scraped as the men around the table rose automatically. His lieutenant Mikhail frowned slightly. We're not finished. We are, Sergei said calmly. He slid his phone into his coat pocket and buttoned the dark wool with deliberate movements. Handle the rest. Mikhail hesitated. Is there a problem? Sergei met his eyes. There is a man who believes no one will come. That was explanation enough. In the elevator, descending soundlessly, Sergei typed a single message. Закройте дверь. Никому не открывайте, кроме меня. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. The car was already waiting in the underground garage. Engine warm despite the cold. Snowflakes spiraled lazily into the headlights as the driver opened the door. Where to? The driver asked. Sergei gave the address. The car pulled away, tires whispering over ice. As Moscow slid past, bridges, courtyards darkened. Playgrounds. Sergei thought of the man he had never met and already judged. Men like that were common. They relied on silence, on fear, on the idea that pain stayed behind closed doors. Sergei checked his phone once more. No new messages. Faster, he said quietly. The driver nodded. The stairwell smelled of damp concrete and boiled cabbage, the usual perfume of old Moscow buildings. The elevator had been broken for years, its doors sealed with a crooked metal plate, so Sergei took the stairs two at a time, his footsteps unhurried but relentless. Each floor echoed differently, music leaking from one apartment, an argument from another, the distant cry of a child who would eventually be told to sleep. At the fourth floor, he stopped. Apartment 47. The door was thin, its cheap wood scarred with old dents, the lock newly scratched as if someone had forced it recently. Sergei listened. Inside there was no movement, only breathing, shallow, careful, the kind that meant pain. He knocked once, not loud, not threatening, precise. On the other side, Anya froze. She had dragged herself off the kitchen floor and into the hallway. One hand pressed to her ribs, the other gripping the phone like it might disappear if she let go. The message, "Я выезжаю," still glowed in her mind. She hadn't believed it. Not really. Men didn't come. They promised, they threatened, they vanished. This knock sounded different, and that frightened her more than the shouting had. "Кто?" she whispered. "Sergei," came the answer, calm, close. "Это я." She slid the chain off the door with shaking fingers and opened it just enough to see him. He filled the doorway without trying to. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed simply, dark coat, black gloves, no visible weapon. His eyes moved over her quickly, not lingering, but seeing everything, the way she leaned to one side, the swelling under her sweater, the color of her face. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "You're hurt," he said, not as a question. She nodded. Speaking hurt too much. Sergei stepped inside and closed the door behind him, turning the lock himself. The apartment was small, colder than it should have been. He gestured gently toward a chair. "Sit." She obeyed, lowering herself carefully. He removed his gloves and placed them on the table, then crouched in front of her so they were at eye level. "Who did this?" he asked again. This time she told him. The name came out thin, like it was ashamed of itself. Sergei stood. The room seemed to shrink when he did. He took out his phone, typed one message, and sent it without hesitation. "Он больше сюда не придет," he said quietly. "He will not come here again." Anya looked up at him, disbelief fighting with exhaustion. Вы не знаете его?» Sergei met her gaze, his expression almost gentle. "That's exactly the problem," he said. Outside, somewhere in the city, a car door slammed. Sergei put his gloves back on. "Stay awake," he told her. "Help is coming." And then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him, leaving the apartment no quieter but infinitely safer. Morning came carefully, as if the city itself was afraid to disturb her. Anya woke to pale winter light crawling across the ceiling, the kind filtered through clouds and dirty snowbanks. For a moment she didn't remember where she was, only that breathing hurt and that the silence felt different. Not heavy, not waiting, just quiet. The radiator clicked and sighed. Somewhere outside, a snowplow groaned like an old animal. Her ribs still burned, but the pain had changed. It no longer carried panic with it. A clean blanket covered her. She didn't remember lying down, only sitting in the chair and fighting sleep while a stranger's calm voice anchored her to the room. On the table beside the couch stood a glass of water, untouched, and a small white card with a handwritten note. "Скоро вернусь. Врач уже едет. I'll be back soon. A doctor is on the way." The doctor had come. That part returned slowly, quiet efficiency. No unnecessary questions, hands that knew what they were doing. He had examined her ribs, wrapped her carefully, prescribed rest, warned her sternly, and left without curiosity. No paperwork, no gossip. By noon the building was alive again. Doors opened and closed. Someone argued about parking. Life resumed its normal rhythm, indifferent as ever. Yet something was missing. The fear. Her phone buzzed softly. "Unknown, как вы? How are you?" She stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. "Живу, I'm alive." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Unknown, хорошо, good." She pushed herself up enough to peer through the window. Down in the courtyard, workers were replacing a door on the building's entrance. Thicker metal. New lock. She hadn't asked for that. No one had told her. It was simply being done. Later, a neighbor knocked, awkward and avoiding her eyes, to say that a man from apartment 12 had moved out suddenly in the night. Left everything. No forwarding address. The neighbor shrugged, already losing interest. Anya closed the door gently and leaned her forehead against it. Her hands were steady now. The phone buzzed one last time. Unknown, если понадобится, напишите. If you need anything, write. She typed, hesitated, then sent. Спасибо. Вы ошиблись номером. Thank you. You had the wrong number. The reply took longer this time, as if the other person was allowing the moment to end. Unknown. Иногда это одно и то же. Sometimes it's the same thing. That evening, as darkness settled, over Moscow in the snow, reflected the streetlights like scattered stars, Anya made tea and drank it while it was still hot. She breathed carefully but fully, and for the first time in a long while, she planned for tomorrow without checking the lock twice.